input tax credit has a soothing effect. But is it really? Speaker Madam shall definitely throw a light on it. Friends, MSME Perspective is a digital platform focused on solutions to MSMEs to guide them through turbulent situations. Knowledge sharing and updation are the key pillars of MSME Perspective platform. We have digital presence in form of YouTube channel, Telegram channel, WhatsApp group, LinkedIn. Our sponsors are Sparsh Advisory Private Limited into debt syndication and Blossom Advisors and Consultants Private Limited into structured trade finance. With this brief introduction, and before we could move on to get enlightened with the speaker, I would invite Mr. Neil Kanji. Mr. Neil Kanji is there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Thank you, Neil Kanji. He would throw some light on social project of Keshav Srushti Samiti. Neil Kanji, can you just brief us for around 2-3 minutes on this social project so that our participants also get to know this? Thank you very much.
Namaskar. Basically, I am from finance.
नील कांत जी,
हाँ,
आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you are audible.
Am I audible to everybody?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So just a brief. 1 second I will take. Basically, I am from finance background. I was basically the regional financial controller of Middle East and Africa. I was stationed abroad. I was working with RPG Group, and then came back to India. Now I've given up the job to join Keshav Srushti on a voluntary basis to return back to the society what I earned so many years. Keshav Srushti is an organization which is quite old, and we have our main office in Bhayandar, Uttan, where we have international school, agricultural college, we have Ayurvedic factory, and we also run 2 schools. One is with a hostel, another is without a hostel, and we are also coming out with 2 more schools for the locals, which will be exclusively for the locals, free of cost. Now, Keshav Srushti does a lot of work in basically many field, environment, then Gram Vikas Yojana. How we came into Gram Vikas Yojana is we have a college called Agricultural College. Then when we first lot of graduates came out of the college, and we went to find out what they were doing. In fact, they were doing nothing after the graduation. So our Margadarshak Shri Bimal Kedia ji thought that we should do something, engage them. So that is how I can hear somebody dekho. Yeah. So that is how we started with Gram Vikas Yojana. Then we started with 7 villages, then 42 to coincide with the independence year of 75th independence year. By 2022, we will have 75 villages. Out of 75 villages, we are going to create 10 model village. 1 model village has been created, and another is on pipeline, which will be inaugurated on 26 September. So what we do basically, we are into many aspects. First is we create forest, dense forest in city. In 2000 square feet, we try to create a dense forest, and then we are making 50 villages plastic neutral. Then coming back to Keshav Srushti Gram Vikas, we work in around 75 villages. We work in 9 dimensions of work, basically in agriculture, water, employment, then women empowerment, health, leadership, and government schemes. First is the irony of Palghar is Palghar gets the maximum rainfall, but most of the water comes to Mumbai. They don't get the water. So between say March and July, they don't get water at all for farming. And what we did is we try to give them water and try to do a reverse migration. During this time, they go to some other villages and try to build work there, and so the children also are deprived of education. So we try to give them education through many other sources. since I have 3 minutes, I'll finish it in one more round. Basically what we do is we work in education, we teach them computer, we have knowledge on wheels. We have 2 now running, the third one will come in September. In a van, basically we carry the whole laboratory, we have computer in that, we have slideshows, we go to school, we teach them chemistry, we teach them biology. Basically we have the entirely human anatomy is there with us. And then we now during the COVID time, this bus went to community, so the locals were not deprived of education even during COVID. Now, what is the success? The success for us is basically URC. URC is Urban Rural Connect. We work in 70, 60 villages. In 60 villages, one city youth is connected with a village. That is how we have succeeded in building relationship with all the villages. We don't give them what we want. We don't decide sitting in the air conditioned offices what they want. We go to them, we ask them what they want. Then it comes to the core committee, and then we decide what has to be done. So we have created many aspects like Vivekananda Shakti Kendra to bring youth, and we are creating leadership. There is absolutely why they are on backward is because leadership. There is no political consensus in this. Whoever does not get any seat in Bombay, they go and fight there. So we are creating leaders. Leadership, every 2 months we run the program. Many big speakers come and encourage them. If anyone wants to become part of the speech, a little bit Hindi, Marathi, then definitely we can invite you to one of our leadership program. You can participate and encourage them. So our aim is to create a local leader. Only local person understand the local need. So that is one. Number two, how this happens is when youth from city goes there, they forget about their internal problems, and then they work on that, or work on the common issues. So we have succeeded in providing them water for agriculture. Around 150 acres of land we have cultivated. Yeah, I think now I will just take one more second and I will stop it. So this is how basically Keshav Srishti. I will send my details. I will send a little bit of presentation to Khemani ji, and then you can have, and then we can have another session, or you can touch base with me. Thank you everyone to give me some 3 minutes time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Neelkant ji. Now, a quick move to the webinar of the day. A brief introduction about the learned speaker. A dynamic lady, of course. This profile is very brief about her. I'm trying to brief it. A chartered accountant in practice since last 14 years, having rich experience in GST, income tax, international tax and corporate audits. Also an MBA from XIMB in finance, acting as an independent woman director with few of the listed BSE companies, was a financial advisor.
समीर सर, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
अभी आ रही है मेरी आवाज?
हाँ जी, क्लियर है.
She has been appointed a GST faculty by ICAI for GST knowledge sharing across India. Have delivered lectures at various forums including ICAI, ICSI, Mira Bhayandar Industrial Association, Pen Association of India, and various others. And additional, I should say, she is standing for election, a candidate for Central Council membership. So definitely, wholeheartedly, we should all, as a member of CA fraternity, support her in this endeavor. With this brief introduction, I would hand over the session to Archana ji for taking over. Thank you.
Archana, all the best.
Thank you, ma'am, and love you for this.
Yes, always.
Thank you. Thank you, Samir ji, for the lovely introduction. I am contesting Central Council elections. That's something apart. Today we are meeting to discuss the very something which is very near to the heart of most of the businessmen, businesswomen. GST when it came, when it was uh, uh, it was introduced to us in July 2017. We all were told certain benefits of GST, and me also being giving lecture in GST, we have been very strongly recommending GST to all the businessmen as to let's welcome GST wholeheartedly. It is one of the best GST laws. But over the period of time, last 4 years now, if you see, GST has been into lot of ups and downs. Certain things that have come into GST has actually marooned the entire intention of the GST. So today we will be talking about the input tax credit, how certain provisions are murdering the spirit of the entire GST law, and how we should be very clear and keen on the law, because many times when we are not aware of the exact law, we end up losing our benefit. So I'm trying to highlight certain portions which are restricting our benefits. So today's topic, if you see, is input tax credit, seamless but seamless. So I'm starting with my presentation. Screen is visible, right? I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it
So,
is.
yes, ma'am. Thank you. The topic is input tax credit, seamless but seamless. And why seamless but seamless is day in, day out, there is some or the other resistance that is coming from the department asking you to reduce your input tax credit. Now, entire backbone of this GST law is the input tax credit. GST was supposed to be a value added tax. And when the statement of objects and reasons was appended to the constitutional amendment bill, the object of GST was told to us is to have a common national market and avoid cascading effect of taxes. So this was the statement of objects and reasons. When you table a bill in the parliament, you need to give the reasons why you want this bill. So this was the two core reasons that was appended to the bill. So we will have one.
Archana, one
Ji,
minute.
ji, ji ma'am.
There is one statement coming below your slide. Please hide that because it is blocking the.
This one?
Yes, yes,
Ha.
yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, done, ma'am. So it was supposed to be having one nation, one market, one nation, one tax. So from Kashmir to Kanyakumari or from Gujarat to Guwahati, any location you go, the GST rates will be the same for the product. The tax should be the same, the market should be the same. And second thing was to avoid the cascading effect of taxes. That was the main intention of the entire GST law that was brought in. And the GSTN system was supposed to provide a backbone to this entire intention, the main object of the law. So if you see, you had excise, you are not allowed to claim the credit of the same in VAT. If you had a VAT, you cannot claim the credit of VAT in service tax, and vice versa. So everything used to be falling on the consumer, and consumer used to pay hefty price of it. So the total taxes, if you go back to 2017, it used to be more than 40 to 45% on a smallest of the small product. But then GST was told that we will reduce the cascading effect, and that's the reason consumers will be benefit in terms of pricing, in terms of the weight of the taxes. So let's look how it has benefited us, and why it is not actually the benefit is getting passed on. If you see input tax credit, is it a right? Now, normally, what do you talk about? What do you mean by input tax credit? So what is my input tax credit? Is inputs on which I have paid taxes for which the credit is available to me. So my inputs, the inputs that I use in my business on which I have paid taxes, and the credit of those taxes is the input tax credit. Now, is it a right? Is it a fundamental right? Is it a constitutional right? Can I go to the Supreme Court and say, sir, input tax credit is my fundamental right, so please allow me the input tax credit, irrespective whether I file the returns and all or not? Or it is my constitutional right. The law says that you should be allowed the input tax credit. So please allow me the input tax credit. It is my constitutional right. Section 16 talks about it. So is it a fundamental right? What if I don't comply certain conditions, but is it my fundamental right? Can I go and claim it? Can I appeal directly to Supreme Court? Do I need to go to the officer, but directly go to the Supreme Court of India and say, please give me my rights? Is it my fundamental right? Is it my constitutional right? Or is it my vested right? Right to avail. If it is fundamental right, do I really need to avail it? Why it is not by default? If it is constitutional right, do I really need to fill the forms? Is it a vested right? Vested right, then what are the right to avail that? Do I really need to fill a form? Then we have Form 2A, Form 2B, Rule 36(4), Rule 86B, and so many other rules that has come up saying that if you do not file this, you will not get the credit. If your vendor does not file this, you will not get the credit. If you avail the credit, these are the limitations. If you don't avail the credit within the time limit, you will not get the credit. And there is Section 43A of CGST Act 2017, which has still not been notified. Section 16(2)AA of CGST Act 2017, recently amended in Finance Act 2021, still not notified. Section 16(4), the biggest demon right now. People are getting notices saying that if your September month return is delayed, then you cannot avail the credit for the previous March month that invoices that has been left out. Immovable property. If I'm buying a immovable property for myself and if the builder is levying a GST on it, can I avail the credit? So many ifs and buts coming to the credit. So if it is a right, why do we have ifs and buts? If it is not a right, then to what extent I can take the benefit out of it? So let's go first to the law. Let's look at what does the CGST Act talk about. I've just put the entire section over here so that there is no disconnect as to what was written in the law and what we are speaking about it. So Section 61 reads, every registered person means the person who is registered with the GST department. Every registered person shall, subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed and in the manner specified in Section 49. 49 is payment of taxes and all. Be entitled to take credit of input tax charged on any supply of goods or services or both to him. Be entitled to take credit of input tax charged, which are used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of his business, and the said amount shall be credited to the electronic credit ledger of such person. So if the first 4 lines are there, then the amount shall be credited to the electronic credit ledger of such persons. This is Section 16(1). Let's go to Section 16(2). 16(2) starts with notwithstanding anything contained in this section. Notwithstanding anything contained in this section. So irrespective of what rest of these sections in Section 16 talk about, Section 16(2) overrides all of them and says, no registered person shall be entitled to the credit of any input tax in respect of any supply of goods or services or both to him unless he is in possession of a tax invoice or a debit note issued by a supplier registered under this act or such other tax paying documents as may be prescribed. So bill of entry, all those documents as well. He has received the goods or services or both. Subject to the provisions of section 41. I will read section 41 after these slides. Subject to the provisions of section 41, the tax charged in respect of such supply has been actually paid to the government either in cash or through utilization of input tax credit admissible in respect of the said supply, and he has furnished the return under section 39. So 16 bracket 2 says that you should be in a possession of a document which is talking about the tax, the relevant document. You have received the goods or services, and subject to section 41, the tax in relation to that particular transaction has been discharged either through cash or through ITC set off, and he has furnished the return under section 39. He has means the person who is claiming the credit. The registered person who is claiming the credit has filed the return under section 39. Now 16.2 has certain provisos. It says, irrespective of what I have written in section 16.2, certain conditions has to be taken care of. Provided that where the goods against an invoice are received in installments, the registered person shall be entitled to take credit upon receipt of the last lot or installment. So if you are getting the goods in 5 different installments, unless you have received the 5th installment, you will not be entitled to the credit. Provided further that where the recipient fails to pay the supplier of goods or services or both, other than the supplies on which tax is payable on reverse charge basis, the amount towards the value of supply along with tax payable thereon within a period of 180 days from the date of issue of invoice by the supplier, an amount equal to the input tax credit availed by the recipient shall be added to his output tax liability along with the interest thereon in such manner as may be prescribed. So if I have not paid to the vendor within 180 days of the date of invoice, then I have to reverse my credit, whatever I have availed, from the date I have availed along with the interest. Provided also that the recipient shall be entitled to avail the credit of input tax on payment made by him of the amount towards the value of supplied goods or services or both along with the tax payable thereon. So accidentally I have not paid, I have to reverse my credit, but later on I realized and I paid to that guy. So the date when I again pay that guy, I am allowed to avail the credit. Right? 16 bracket 3. Where the registered person has claimed depreciation on the tax component of the cost of capital goods and plant and machinery under the provisions of Income Tax Act, the input tax credit on the said tax component shall not be allowed. Decent provision. If you have already claimed depreciation on the input tax, you should not claim the credit again. It will be a double benefit. 16 bracket 4. A registered person shall not be entitled to take input tax credit in respect of any invoice or debit note for supply of goods or services or both after the due date of furnishing the return under section 39 for the month of September following the end of the financial year to which such invoice or debit note pertains, or furnishing of the relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. Now have we looked to entire section 16, 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 16.4 and the provisions of section 16.2, right? Can we see GSTR 2A or 2B mentioned anywhere in this? If people can comment in the chat box. Did anywhere we read about GSTR 2A and 2B in the entire section 16, 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 16.4?
No.
No way. Nowhere it is mentioned about form. GSTR 2A, GSTR 2B, right? So none of the section 16 talks about the forms. Neither does it say, okay, the forms that has been prescribed, or it is limited. Whatever limitations they wanted, they have already put it over here. So they are saying if you have not received the goods incomplete, You will not be entitled unless you receive the complete goods incomplete. They are saying if you have not paid to the vendor on time, reverse the credit. They are saying if you have paid them later on, avail the credit. They are saying if your return for September is already filed or the annual return has been already filed, whichever is earlier, your credit will not be allowed to be extended after that particular period. So the entire section 16 is not talking about anything apart from these restrictions. Now let's come to section 41. 41 is mentioned in section 16 2C. So if you see 16 2C, subject to the provisions of section 41, the tax charged in respect of such supply has been actually paid to the government either in cash or through utilization of input tax credit admissible in respect of said supply. So let's go to section 41. Section 41 says claim of input tax credit and provisional acceptance thereof. And it says every registered person shall, subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed, be entitled to take credit of eligible input tax as self-assessed in his return, and such amount shall be credited on a provisional basis to his electronic credit ledger. Such amount shall be credited on a provisional basis to his electronic credit ledger. So if you have fulfilled the entire conditions that has been provided, your electronic credit ledger will have the input tax credit credited on a provisional basis. The credit referred to in subsection 1 shall be utilized only for payment of self-assessed output tax as per the return referred to in the said subsection. So it is saying if you have already complied with the conditions, then your electronic credit ledger will be complied. Now here also they are not talking about any forms which is saying it should reflect in the vendor's ledger or it should reflect in the GSTR 2A. It is saying if you have complied with the conditions. And 16(2)(c) says subject to the provisions of section 41, the tax charged in respect of such supply has been actually paid to the government, either in cash or through utilization of input tax credit. Now let's understand. I am interpreting section 41 and 16(2)(c). It says the tax charged in respect of such supply. What is the supply we are talking about? The supply that we have just brought from a vendor has been actually paid to the government, either in cash or through utilization of input tax credit. Can I ask the vendor, did you pay, sir? Can I go and tell him, sir, have you paid the challan? Sir, have you filed the return? And why should he tell me that he has paid or filed the challan? In service tax era, they used to provide us that yellow challan copy GAR7. Here, what will he provide me? The GSTR1 is supposed to reflect the data in GSTR 2A. But does that guarantee that he has paid the taxes in GSTR 3B? And even if it is not reflecting, is it not possible that the guy would have discharged the tax in GSTR 3B? So here the catch is the tax charged in respect of such supply. So if you have charged me 10,000 rupees as a tax and he has discharged in GSTR 3B form, then to my opinion, he has already done with his liability. But I, as a person, as a recipient of the input tax credit, don't have any control on his systems or on his returns. His 3B does not talk about the transactional data. His 3B talks about the net data. So it is all sales minus all credit notes plus all debit notes. So how do I know that the sale that he made to me is actually forming part of that particular 3B? And even if it is falling into that 3B, whether it is falling into that GSTR1, and what if he has missed it? Will he not put it in the next one? Why am I put the conditions to that guy to give me some basis that he has discharged the taxes? Or you give me a control, allow me from GSTR2 so that I upload the data for the vendor and let vendor do the confirmation that he has taken care of that. Otherwise, I don't have any control. So there is already, something which is not in my control, something as an impossible activity that has been put on my domain. If you can say that the law says that I am supposed to be taking care of that payment, then still I'm under control. But my vendor is supposed to pay that tax. This is something which is stretching it is beyond my control. So again, the matter is subject to various, litigations, and certain litigations are already in courts, but still subject to the provisions of section 41. So 41 says, if I'm complying with all the conditions, then I'm entitled to take the credit of eligible input tax as self-assessed. So if my self-assessment says that I have complied with the conditions, I'm allowed to credit the input tax credit on a provisional basis to my electronic credit ledger. Now coming to the point 2, 36(4). Now this is, something which is, it is, something that is a thought process, and it is somewhere a lacuna coming from a system. Now, if you go back to the history of 36(4), there was a GST Council meeting happening wherein the department has put to the GST Council that more than 2 lakh crores of input tax credit is mismatched. So your 3B is having some 1 crore rupees input tax credit, but your 2A, which is supposed to reflect 1 crore, is not reflecting the complete amount. There is a huge gap. And then they offered to the GST Council that what we will do is we will put a regulation that if the credit is not reflecting in GSTR 2A, then you are not entitled to the credit except to the 5% of the eligible credit that is reflecting it. So what is happening is the input tax credit that I'm supposed to have is rupees 100, but since my input tax credit in GSTR 2A is only 50, I can only avail 50 plus 5% of 50. Now, what about section 16? 16 said, you already have invoice, you already received the goods, you complied with section 41 requirement, right? And you have filed the returns. But 36(4), rule 36(4) is not appended to any section right now. 36(4) is, traveling beyond the law. It is traveling beyond the law, saying that I am prescribing certain conditions. Conditions is supposed to be prescribed by law, but what is happening is rule is prescribing a law. So if you're traveling by road and a traffic officer sees that you're not complying with the condition, then what he will do, he will put a new condition. So if you're wearing a sunglass and he will say, no, I say sunglass should not be worn. It is nowhere written, but he will say, no, I don't want you to wear a sunglass while driving the bike. So you have not complied with the rules. So you are liable to all the penalty and all the fees. Then you need to pay the challan. So some regulation which is not prescribed in the act is prescribed in the rule, and they are asking you to comply with it without giving proper legitimate reasons to it. The reason that was provided was that there is a discrepancy and there is a mismatch between the input tax credit that is reflecting in 2A and the form 3B. But the resolution would have been that they could have made the form 2 live, wherein people would have uploaded their transactional data of input tax credit, which could have gone to the vendor. He could have taken care of it, confirmed by the vendor, and then the mismatch would have been done artificially at the back end, and you would have been easily sorted out with this mess. Instead, what we do, we ask that vendor is doing this and vendor has not uploaded the data, so you don't take the credit. So instead of catching the people who are at the fault, they are asking the recipient who is available to them easily, to restrict their entitlement. The Madras High Court in the Sandai Chem has held that absence of enabling provision cannot jeopardize the taxpayer from availing credit that they are entitled to while allowing them to rectify and correct Form GSTR1 for the period August 7 to December 17 and redistribute the credit available from the integrated tax column to central GST column and state GST fields. So this was the case wherein the vendor has erred in giving the credit, and he actually put the credit into the B2C tab instead of putting into the B2B tab. And since he is not allowed to revise, and then there is a circular number 26 which says that you are not allowed to revise your GSTR1. All you can do is you amend your GSTR1. So how you can amend? The invoice which is already existing can be amended, but you cannot have your B2C changed from B2C to B2B. So there is a restriction. And due to this is completely jeopardizing the taxpayer's entitlement. And most of the court, like Sandai came, most of the courts have given the decisions in the favor of the assessee, saying that this is not the way the law works. It should be seamless. But still, we are yet to see any relief. Now, 36.4, because it is traveling beyond the law, it is actually ultra-virus. It is ultra-virus. So even if the officer is insisting on it, ask him, sir, which provision in the Act talks about Rule 36.4. Now let's come to 16.2AA. Now this was an amendment that was inserted in Finance Act 2021. In that they said the details of the invoice or debit note referred to in Clause A has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supplies, and such details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note in the manner specified under Section 37. Section 37 is the section in which you file the GSTR1 return. So it says that you will be entitled to the credit when the vendor has furnished the data in the GSTR1. But to the surprise, this particular section is still not yet notified. There is Rule 86B. So if you have your monthly sales more than 50 lakhs, then you are not allowed to utilize more than 99% of your credit. So it reads, notwithstanding anything contained in these rules. This is Rule 86B. This is not a section. We read Section 16. We read Section 41. This is a rule. Rule is saying, notwithstanding anything contained in these rules, yani all the rules that we have, it is saying notwithstanding anything contained in these rules, the registered person shall not use the amount available in electronic credit ledger to discharge his liability towards output tax in excess of 99% of such tax liability in cases where the value of taxable supply other than exempt and zero rated supply in a month exceeds 50 lakh rupees. So one more rule which is traveling beyond the law. Law does not restrict your set of mechanism. Law only gives you the medium how to set it off. IGST to IGST, CGST to CGST. It does not say that you will only get 99%. So ideally, if they wanted to restrict this, they should have come in the section itself. But what is happening is, it has been brought in the rules. It is brought in the rules only saying that we need to safeguard. But believe me, this is also traveling beyond the, the four corners of the law. And again, if this goes to the court, I'm sure this is in court, Gujarat High Court, I'm already aware. One of the seniors is already fighting this Rule 86B. So possibly this will also get quashed in the coming years. But even the judiciary is taking time. But this as such does not have any backup from the Act, CGST Act, IGST Act or SGST Act. And this is supposed to be, ultra-virus again. Now let's come to GSTR 2A and 2B. Entire CGST Act, or if you go to IGST Act or SGST Act, they not once it talks about the forms. It does not say about GSTR 2A or GSTR 2B. It says it should be the tax should be discharged by the vendor, but it does not say that it has to reflect in 2A. And let me come to GSTR 2. GSTR 2 is a return that is supposed to be filed by the recipient. So vendor will file GSTR 1. The data will come to the recipient. He will validate the data, and once he files that, it will be treated as a form GSTR 2. The details of purchases and notification number 44 by 2018, dated 10th September 2018, said that GSTR 2 will be notified to be filed at a later date. Till date, there is no notification talking about the filing of GSTR 2. So how without GSTR 2 can you have its ancillary form GSTR 2A or GSTR 2B? Just because we have 26 alphabets in English doesn't mean that you keep on coming with the ancillary pages and say, okay, you need to comply with this, comply with this. So today we have GSTR 2A, 2B, then we will have 2C, 2D, 2X, 2Z, then 2AA, 2BB, right? But then problem is if you don't have the original form, the form which is supposed to be filed, can we have the ancillary pages notified and say that this is binding on you even without having the original form notified? So you suspend the original form and the GSTN CEO says that it is okay if we have one-sided information to be submitted. So they have a limitation in terms of technology. They are not allowing the recipient to file the purchases data. And then they come back and say your GSTR 2A is not having data. So what you do, you create a limitations. You create inherent issues. And then you say that your data is not reflecting. So you actually have made me impossible situation wherein I am not under control either with the vendor or with the department to say that this is my original entitlement. Simple, I will put it like this. I am a small vendor. I have paid some 10,000 rupees as IGST to my vendor. I availed in 3B, but only if it is seen in GSTR 2A, only if it is seen in 2B before 12th day, that is midnight of 11th. Believe me, all these are not binding on us. This is all coming from the officer's mind. There is one circular which says that if the return is not filed within the due date by the vendor, that is midnight of 11th, then the recipient will not get the credit. But then that circular is also traveling beyond the law. That circular is not binding on us. It is binding on the assessee only if it is beneficial to the assessee. Only if seen in 8A in GSTR 9, and then if assessing officer is satisfied. So putting, something called as, the thought, okay, this entire provision of, having invoice and going back to the section 16, this section 16(2) is the one that we need to be very, very clear. Even section 16(4) comes from saying that if you do not, claim it by end of the September month or before filing of the annual return, you are not entitled to the credit. But my personal opinion, section 16(2) starts with Notwithstanding anything contained in this section, no registered person shall be entitled to the credit. So my section 16(2) overrides section 16 bracket 4. So if I have an invoice, if I have received the goods, and as per my self-assessment, if the tax credit is eligible, and I have filed the return under section 39, then I'm supposed to be eligible for the credit. So going back to the original thought, taking you back to that original thought, is it my fundamental right, constitutional right, or a vested right? If we can discuss. My input tax credit is basically a vested right with the conditions applied. So if I'm complying with the conditions provided in the CGST Act, then I'm supposed to have that credit. It is my vested right. And then no circular or a notification or some departmental orders can take away my right by saying that, okay, you didn't comply this, your right is gone. Okay, you didn't comply with this, your right is gone. Compliance is a forms. Compliance is a procedural requirement. Can it take away my vested right? No, unless and until I have really defeated the certain sections of the act. So just because it is not reflecting in 2A or it is not reflecting in 2B doesn't mean that I'm not entitled to the credit. However, some companies are still doing it for the sake to avoid the litigations, because you get a notice, you need to run between the wicket and asking them to allow you the credit. And secondly, the officers have been given some full powers, they can go and block the credit without giving you an opportunity of being heard. However, let's understand, just because they are executing certain powers which is not within the law or their jurisdiction, those particular activities or those actions or orders are liable to be quashed at the higher authorities. So even if it is 16 bracket 4, and if you have a significant amount of credit because getting stuck, kindly try to ask your associations, ask your the groups, industry sectors to represent heavily on this. We are supposed to abide by the law, but not the discretionary provisions of the officers raised by the officer. An officer making a circular saying that if a vendor is uploading a data by 11th of the midnight, then only you are eligible for a credit is nowhere written in the act. If you read the original return system, section 37, 38, and 39, it said that the data has to be uploaded by 11th by the vendor. It has to be confirmed by 15th by the recipient. By 17th, form 2 will be closed, form 3 will be ready, and by 20th, the net amount will flow into the system, and GSTR 3 will talk about the net tax to be paid after having the sale minus ITC, net ITC, and the tax will be paid through GSTR 3. GSTR 2 is suspended, GSTR 3 is suspended. GSTR 3B, we all are aware how it is working. It was a provisional form for first 2 months. Then, the courts have actually held that it is not a return. Then there was a retrospective amendment. Then there is already a court case going on it. So possibly we will have some relief in the coming future. So whether 3B itself is a return and it can restrict my liability or it can restrict my input tax credit is a bigger call. So with this, I am about to, close this. Thank you so much for hearing me patiently. Any questions? I'm ready to take it. We had a very limited time, so I thought I will, only touch upon the main points. So any questions I'm ready to take. Thank you, Samir sir, for the opportunity, and thank you, Kajal ma'am, for being there. Great boost. Your presence makes me so happy about it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Samir sir,
always
and all
with you.
yours. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome, madam. Welcome. And thanks to the MSME perspective.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any questions? Samrik sir has raised a hand.
Mhm.
So
Please
go
can you
ahead,
hear
sir.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please.
Okay, so question is related to this. Say when we are raising an invoice, okay,
Mhm.
to a customer with GST, okay. Sometimes it happens that client has asked for the invoice and tax invoice, and client is not paying us for a 6 months, 1 year, and sometimes it also happens that they are not paying, and we have already paid the GST. In certain
Mhm.
scenario, means what does this GST says that whether we can get back that GST what we have paid or how it is?
Sir, so let's understand that you have already delivered the goods or rendered the services. You raise an invoice on them, and for some reason they are not ready to pay.
Yeah.
Problem is, if they are not ready to pay, this becomes something which is beyond the law. Law says that person who has not paid you should reverse his input tax credit, because the stake of the government is limited to that input tax credit only.
Hmm.
Now, if they are not paying you, this is a commercial obligation. So you have all other, what we call it as opportunities to, knock the doors of the government in other platforms. But GST per se will not give you relief in terms of not getting the services amount or goods amount back from the customer.
Okay, one more question from my side. Say in the same scenario, so what is nowadays what is happened? The customer is we have given a quotation and they are asked me to you they will make a payment and we give them a bill because it's all happens with the big companies. We give them a bill and what happened after sometimes 2 months, 3 months they said they have not taken the services also, but since they have we have given a tax invoice to them, we have paid the GST. And after 3 months, somebody has changed or something, and they say that we don't take these services, and we have not taken your invoice into account, but I have paid GST. What happened to this situation?
So, sir, your transaction has not gone through.
Yeah,
Possibly on receipt of advance, you have raised a tax invoice.
not even receipt of advance. I'm telling you. Say this big company when we are giving a quotation to make a payment, or they say instead of performa invoice, they're asking us to give a tax invoice.
Mhm.
And then they are saying that okay, it takes time because we have a different system, work order, and all these things. They take 2 3 months, and after that they don't pay, or they say we don't want to continue because we have some issues. So in certain scenarios, since we have paid the GST, because once I raise a tax invoice, I paid the GST. So under this situation, what happened? That is what my question.
Okay. So first of all, let's understand when you're actually getting into the arrangement,
Yeah.
and you need to send them some document talking about the amount that needs to be paid over the period due to the arrangement.
Yeah.
Now, tax invoice is not the right document to be raised. It can be a pro forma invoice. It can be, basically a receipt voucher, or maybe some document which is only talking about the amount. You raise a pro forma invoice or you raise an intent letter. You should.
You are right. I'm telling you, we have faced such situation with many of the companies. When we are raising a performa invoice, they say no, we don't accept performa invoice. You send a tax invoice.
Okay.
And this after sending a tax invoice, they are not making a payment, and then sometimes probably it happens in few cases that the client has not taken the services also. But we are having a heavy loss because of we paid the GST.
So let me come to this. So what has happened is, for example, you have raised the tax invoice,
Yeah.
but agreement did not go through, no services rendered, no goods delivered. Now, if it is within 3 months or 6 months, you can always go back and raise a credit note, because the transaction itself did not work out. The services has not been rendered, the supply has not happened. So go back and raise your CN, credit note, or any other document that can be there, and you can always claim back the GST amount that you have paid to the department. That is allowed because your transaction did not happen.
And what is the time period for that?
Ideally, it should be within 6 months, because after that it becomes a questionable transaction.
Okay.
So within 6 months, see to it that your transaction actually gets crystallized, or your agreement is waived off and you call back the entire GST amount that you have paid.
Okay. Got it. So we'll take care of it.
Yes.
Hello.
Mr. Deepak,
Can I
Mr.
just
Deepak,
take the same question a bit extended?
Ji Jigar ji.
Yeah, hi.
Go ahead.
So even in this case, let us say some of my supplier I'm sorry, some of my customers have, let's say, deducted certain amount, and for which they have raised some debit note. Now, but the matter is still under negotiation, right? So customer being empowered for doing this, such a big customer, they have raised their debit note without citing much of the things and without listening to us, hearing us. Now, since it is under negotiation, we don't pass a credit note for that stuff. So what happens is, uh, let's say I'm talking about revising the GSTR monthly returns and all those from that perspective. Now, after the year end, let's say in the very recent month, I've decided, okay, fine, we don't have any choice, but we need to pass on this credit note. Now, the matter relates to the debit note passed by the customer, let's say 1.5 year back or 2 year back, which got settled just now. Will I be in a position to avail the benefit of GST in this? And number two is, even if I want to clean my balance sheet of the last year itself, which is 31st March 2021, am I in a position to revise my monthly GSTR return, or how will I address this issue in my annual return? Because my annual return will obviously be the aggregation of a 12 monthly returns only, right? But now, because I didn't finalize, I'm yet to finalize my financials, so there will be some reconciliation things coming up because of this. If I end up passing this all credit notes dated 31st March 2021 itself, uh, how best should I handle this situation in terms of GST, compliance thing and all those things?
Yeah, so I think it's a very good question. Believe me, we will have to gear up in terms of GST. So if you see nowadays, the limitation time that is given by the department is max 2 months. So if you do not file 2 months 3B, your R1 is blocked. If you do not file your R1 and 3B for 2 months, your e-way bill is blocked. If you do not file your returns for 3 months, you get a notice for not filing under Section 46 as a defaulter for returns. So they have, squeezed the time limit for almost all the matters. They are looking at a real time, transactions. And if you read the GST Council minutes also, what they are proposing, the concept when they were trying to introduce of e-invoice, they said that there should not be a gap between the transaction and the return filing systems. So if we are waiting for almost 2 years for a particular transactions to close, somewhere we are losing not only our time, we are also losing the GST, and also the customer may feel that we are not serious about the GST matters. So for example, if you have a 10 lakh rupees invoice and for the ease of calculation, there is 1 lakh rupees as GST on that. That 1 lakh rupees stuck for next 2 years. And the time limit for anything that needs to be closed is max the September of the next year. So if your April 21 invoice is there, max to max you can go to September 22 return and make all the changes and amendments. So what I precisely suggest is that when it comes to GST, put your reconciliations in place. There are systems available to reconcile. Now coming to the second point, wherein the customer has raised a debit note on you. GST does not recognize any debit note or credit note from the customer. It is the vendor who is supreme. So vendor raising the invoice, vendor raising the debit note and credit note is treated as valid by the department. So if a customer against his purchase is raising a debit note, see to it that the entire system does not have any place to put that debit note. So you yourself is not even aware unless until that debit note comes into your books of accounts formally. So it is your credit note which will be recognized by the department and not the debit note of the customer.
But
However, when
what if the customer has shared the debit note with us formally, and which was still not accepted by us and under negotiation, right? So not yet concluded, kind of.
So if amount is significant and it is taking definitely a time, try to freeze it within the time limit. I'm sure the customer is equally aware of the nuances of GST, because tomorrow if the debit note is not allowed or does not settle, then he will lose the input tax credit to that extent because he has not availed within the time limit. Secondly, for us, we have already paid the GST against the invoice.
Yeah.
So if that debit note is not considered by us, against which the credit note should have gone into the GST R1 and 3B, we tend to lose that particular amount of GST to the department. We are not going to get even a single rupee interest against that. So it's better
Okay,
we
so
put a Haji.
so while raising the credit note, I can avail that credit back.
Yes, within the time limit, if it is going through, avail the reversal of the tax that you have paid, and department has nothing to do with that. They will not try to raise any issues unless they have a suspicion that there is something you are avoiding. They are ready to
And that
welcome that. In fact, they have disconnected the linking of the invoices with the credit notes.
okay, and that
So
time
now even
limit
if
is
your
that
one-on-one invoices are not linked, they are allowing it.
correct. And that time limit is basically the moment I raise my credit note. After that, within next 18 months, or let's say next year's September, right?
Next year September, or filing of annual return, whichever is earlier.
Whichever is okay.
Yes, that is very
Yes.
Thank you.
correctly said. Thank you very much, Speaker Madam. Next question is from Deepak Saini ji, I suppose. He has raised hand.
Ji sir.
Yes,
Deepak ji, are you
actually.
there?
Yes, yes,
Please go
yes,
ahead.
Archana ma'am. Actually, my question is quite similar in line of debit note.
Mhm.
Actually, we received some multiple shipment from vendor in the last year. Now, what happened in this year when we are going to check the credits now, then it is not available. So, what my question is whether the raising of debit note can be treated as a payment from our side so that we are not on any default from the GST law perspective. Like,
So,
say, suppose we have received 100,000 of GST in the last year, but we couldn't get the credit of that one. So we raised the debit note of 100,000 in this year and setting off their balance of GST default.
so basically, you have an invoice of
So
10
this
lakh rupees, and then Ji Deepak ji were saying something.
Yes, so can I treat it that raising of debit note as a payment from my side, because we there is some time limit, like within 180 days I have to be make payment to vendor, otherwise I have to be reverse back the credit.
So let's understand it like this.
You got my question?
I got your question. If you see the second proviso to section 16 bracket 2, it very clearly says that the payment has to be made. Right. Now you are not supposed to raise a debit note about payment. When you're making a payment, it is about a payment voucher. Right. So raising a debit note, it means that you have some discrepancy in the services that has been rendered or the supply that has been made. Your debit note says that you're debiting the vendor because it is not either in line with the requirement, or the quality is not matching, or for some reason the amount or the rate has come up or down. That's the reason you're raising a debit note. For payment, it has to be a payment voucher. So if it is a associate entities wherein the journal entries are allowed, there you can treat it. But associate entities as such, they don't bank upon and they treat it as paid. Right. So there you have a leverage, but otherwise, in normal scenario, debit note will not be treated as a payment made. So possibly you will have to reverse the ITC, and when you make a payment, which is actually a payment, then only they will allow you to avail the credit.
Okay, but okay. In that case, I have to make only the GST payment, and the principal portion I will keep it myself.
So it is like how you put it in, like if you have a 10 lakh rupees invoice and 1 lakh rupees is the GST, then you have to categorically mention that you're paying the GST amount right now and rest will be paid later. And that guy has to, confirm that he has received the GST amount. So again, matter is subject to litigation because the officer may not adhere, saying that you're trying to deviate from your commercial obligations. But then this is, you can always push through, okay, this is the arrangement that we had, that we will pay the GST amount and rest of the amount will be paid after, compliance of the rest of the obligation of the agreement.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. I got my answer.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Prashant Ghadge ji. Prashant ji, you have raised your
Hello.
hand. Ha,
Hello.
please go ahead.
Ji, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good
Actually,
afternoon.
ma'am, I'm from Deloitte, and my company is doing around 400 crore business, but we are facing some issue, and how can we handle that? It's a really don't know. One question is related to the clearing and forwarding invoices. Our CHA is raising invoice to us, but they
Mhm.
are charging the some reimbursement invoices, which is appear in our GSTR 2A.
Mhm.
So how we can close it now? Because our vendor is on a CHA only. We are booking this invoice in our system and taking the credit. Okay, and some reimbursement invoice like transport and all who is availed by CHA is raising directly invoice to Deloitte,
Mhm.
and same has been appeared in our 2A, and which is amount is in you can say the around it 15 to 20 lakh is an accumulated yearly input tax credit we cannot avail.
So I will put it like this. There are services rendered by CHA wherein one is taxable and one is reimbursement,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
On reimbursement, he is not charging GST.
No. Yeah. Like that.
Right. So even if that reimbursement is reflecting in my 2A, since there is no input tax credit impact, I think that should not be a matter of concern unless and until officer is, your income tax officer is getting into it. GST department officer will not getting into it because there is no input tax credit impact, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Secondly, the company is recovering the reimbursement from the another company, but raising a bill to you.
Yes.
So what is happening is basically the bill is coming to you with all those ratification of the reimbursement amount,
Yes.
and amount is paid by the original company.
Yes, ma'am.
So that original company is not getting the impact of this entire reimbursement. It is getting passed through you.
Yes, ma'am.
So just check with the original company what is the base document based on which they are reimbursing the amount.
Okay.
Because the company needs some document to pay the amount.
योगेश को निकाल दो
Yes, ma'am.
योगेश
समीर जी आप थोड़ा म्यूट पे जाएंगे प्लीज. हाँ. So basically what is happening is that original company who is reimbursing the amount will need some document. Maybe possible your company, when it is receiving a document from CHA, is making an endorsement to the original company, and based on that endorsement, the company is paying the reimbursement to the CHA.
Yes, ma'am.
So there is no harm in having this particular document and arrangement. There is no
Ma'am.
RCM applicable. There is no input tax applicable on the reimbursement. The taxable services CHA may be billing to you. And if the document is in your name, you have received the services, you have made the payment on time. If it is reflecting into a nothing like it, sir.
Ma'am, but what happen if income tax officer found such a issue, then he can add back our expenses because I'm not availing around 20 lakh rupees input tax credit. It shows like that.
So see, input tax credit was not there, but there is an expense which is reflecting in your 2A.
Yes.
Right. Now, even if income tax officer comes up, you can always show the endorsement that you gave to the original company.
Okay.
That endorsement which says that the amount, X amount is supposed to be paid by the original company, will actually help you to tell that this has been only it's a passing of a transaction because we are the party to the entire transaction, and that's the reason it is coming through us.
Okay. And
And you can,
yes, ma'am, I got it your point. One more issue is there. Okay, we are supplying the entire OEMs like Bajaj, Mahindra, Tata, and all. What happened? We have to ship the our material to the warehouse, customer warehouse, and if there is any dispute like that, eBay bill issue and all, then they force to us for the cancel it this invoice by your end and raise the fresh invoice. If we are not able, we deny, then they will deny to the invert the material. So it's such a type of transaction will be noticed after 1 month, 2 month, 3 months, and much more because our turnover is much higher. So this transaction will be reflected in 2-3 months. After that, we are canceling our invoice on our invoice basis only. So it will be the litigate.
can you give me one instance, for example?
For example, for the TVS Mysore, we are supplying material in month of April. Okay, it's a and what is the commercial agreement is we have to keep around 1 month inventory in their warehouse. Okay, After 1 month, suppose our logistic officer या their logistic officer is failed to extend the e-way bill, then they will ask us to cancel it this invoice and issue the fresh invoice. If we are denied, then they will not inward the material. And it's around one invoice will be like that, the 36 lakh and all. Yeah, minimum lot will be goes in the 36 lakh and 28% taxes we are charging to them. So we have to forcefully cancel it our invoice on our own invoice basis. We don't have only have some mail communication and all. But in overall, we can say we cancel it on our basis around 4 to 5 crore invoices in self invoice basis, yeah, self estimation. So it will be litigate.
So basically, you have goods in a particular warehouse.
Yeah.
That has to be moved at the instruction of the customer.
Yes, ma'am.
But if the customer does not give you instruction, or for some reason the instructions has not been taken care of, and there is already the deadline has been closed, then they say that you need to make a fresh invoice and cancel the invoice that was raised maybe a month back.
2-3 months back.
2-3 months back. And the transaction has not happened, right?
Transaction in a sense?
So your goods are lying in a warehouse.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right. So if
Yes,
your goods are lying in warehouse, then customer is supposed to pick it up.
Yes.
But he has not picked it for 3 months.
Yes, ma'am.
Now after 3 months, because whoever defaulted, maybe your team or their team, but after 3 months, when the transaction is about to sail through, they ask you to raise a fresh invoice and not the 3 months back invoice.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now let me tell you. For example, there is only one transaction right now. There is no multiple transaction. This is only one transaction. You raised an invoice on 1st April 21, and there is a goods of 10 lakh rupees, GST of 1 lakh rupees, and these goods have not moved. Your invoice is made, the arrangement is okay, there is no comeback from the customer, but for 3 months the goods are not moved.
Yes,
now
ma'am.
1st July 21, you come to know that the transaction needs to be done now, but customer is insisting that you need to make a fresh invoice and fresh e-way bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now let me tell you how it is. Your goods did not happen. Your goods did not move. Your transaction did not happen. The commercial transaction did not sail through.
Ma'am, what happened? We are not transferring our material on the challan or anything. We are transferring entire material on the only invoice base. And it's transport also arranged by TVS and all OEMs, not by us. And it's happened with all OEMs, not for the Deloto, yeah, anyone. It's regularly this transaction has been happen. Entirely transport and all cases are their end, and they are managing transport, warehouse and all. But if they fail to do, they forced us to cancel it on own basis.
So what is happening is, because they have an upper hand, they are asking you to cancel the previous invoice and make a fresh invoice, because they have their own commercial reasons not to take it ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes.
But all I understand, the transaction between 1st April 21 to 30th June 21 has not happened.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So since the transaction did not happen, you have a valid reason to cancel that, and you have a ditto invoice which is going to come on 1st July 21, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So there is no harm in raising this. All you need to do is, you have a proper document to this, that this is the original transaction that was on April 21, have a credit note against it, and then 1st July 21 have a fresh invoice.
Okay.
Right? It may be the frequency of transaction is high, but since the transactions are at the behest of the customer, so you have all your documents wherein they are requesting you to make a fresh invoice, right?
Yeah, they request on the mail ki we need this material, please arrange that invoice.
Can I interrupt here just a second? Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. So basically the problem here is with the OEMs that I mean, we all have to recognize our revenue basis the invoice we raise. Okay, that's what this gentleman must also be doing. Even if you get into the accounting standard a bit, you'll come to know that till the time risk and reward is transferred, you cannot book your recognize your sales. Correct. Our this is completely opposite to that stuff. Reason being, when we shift these goods uh, to the warehouse, that warehouse either belongs to us only or it belongs to the OEM. That's still okay. But till the time OEM clears goods from that warehouse, that is not considered as purchased by the OEMs, and hence the risk and reward still belongs to us. It's only the mismatch between the accounting concept and the practical world, because we end up recognizing revenue. Like if I'll be the auditor, I'm surely gonna raise a question that was, why are you recognizing a revenue at a March end when these goods are not yet accepted by the OEM? So what happens here? Yeah, tell me.
Sir, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Hi, Prashant. Actually, what happens, sir? What is a recognition in income? Okay,
Yeah.
it's an I am the itself the CA, and what
Yeah.
is the actually recognition income in our balance sheet, which is a totally different part. Okay,
Correct.
tax book and balance sheet is totally different, and we cannot justifying that if there is no acceptance of material, then it's we have to reverse the entire income. There is an okay, but when we are selling the material, if we don't raise the any sale invoice, okay, valid document, then OEM will be not pick up our material as per schedule.
No. Okay. So, okay, the reason which I gave, it has got a different connection. So what am I trying to tell you is the problem which Prashant is facing probably is that, since we all raise invoices basis our dispatch to the warehouse, correct?
Yeah.
So in a way, throughout the year, we end up recognizing, let's say, 50-60 crores of revenue from each of these OEMs. Out of
Yes.
this, because of this time lag between acceptance by the OEM, or let's say clearance of goods through the warehouse, from warehouse, and our invoicing to the warehouse, kind of thing, the OEM, correct? Because of
Yes.
this, certain problems comes up or certain delays happens, because of which कुछ एक sales को reverse करना पड़ता है. And that's why Prashant is facing a reversal issue, that if the department comes to know that out of 60 crore revenue, these people have been reversing the invoices of 5 to 6 crores, then they might question why this is happening. That's what is this practical problem. Probably I am understanding.
Yes.
Am I right,
It's a
Prashant?
practical problem, and still I'm working with this OEM since 12, 13 year, and this is not
Yeah.
resolved, because it's a basic
Yeah.
way they are say or try to tell, if you want to do, then do, otherwise anyone else can do.
I know, Prashant. So, few moments back, I also raised the same question. 2 साल लग जाते हैं डेबिट नोट का नेगोशिएशन में और क्लियरेंस होने में, हमें पता भी नहीं चलता है. हमने तो डिस्पैच कर दिया है वेयरहाउस में, वेयरहाउस से गुड्स वहां गया है, देन दे सडनली आफ्टर 6 months कम आउट विद अ पॉइंट कि हमने जब लाइन में डाला तो क्वालिटी इशू था, एंड दैट्स वेयर दिस इज अ डिडक्शन. दैट डिडक्शन इटसेल्फ कम्स. मैंने इनवॉइस किया जनवरी में, वो लोग ने वेयरहाउस से क्लियर किया लेट्स से अप्रैल मंथ में, 4 महीने वहीं पे चले गए. उसके बाद में वो लोग ने क्लियरेंस करने के बाद में लाइन में डाला और 3 महीने के बाद में, देन दे केम आउट विद अ डेबिट नोट बाय सेइंग क्वालिटी इशू है. नाउ ऑलरेडी I'm getting deduction conveyed to me itself after 8 months. Then I start negotiating, scrutinizing, and ये सब delay होते हैं. This is what is happening in the OEM business always, and that's why we are
Yes, and
struggling.
it's right now I want to told you around 8 to 9 crore transactions is under trial, under discussion. Okay, and if you are come to know, the tax impact is in a very different way. It's a 2 or 3 crore loss to the bear by our company for the non-negotiate and entire price difference and all. If we can say the debit note for the price difference, we have to raise around 5 to 6,000 debit note each and every quarter to the Bajaj and all.
Yeah.
So,
I'm also facing the same issue with Bajaj.
yeah, Jigar, thank you so much for putting it at one look. This one, Prashant ji, I think we all agree that even the OEM, comes with a proper arrangement, warranty, guarantee, and everything, right?
Yes.
So any agreement is very clearly documented, saying that till what time the customer has to come back for all the quality and other reasons. Like, as far as we understand, warranty and everything comes with time limit. So till a certain period of time, they are supposed to come back and tell us the quality issues and But coming back to the GST, if it is within the time limit that the GST department has given, then I don't think department will litigate it. Even if the future, if the frequency of the transactions is high, but since it will be very common for year-on-year transactions. So if you see, if I say out of 100 crores, if my 5 crore transaction is having frequent cancellations and re-invoicing, right, that percentage will be common for year-on-year. So whether it is 17, 18, 18, 19, hardly there will be a deviation back to the corona challenging times. Possibly 5 to 7% may change, but otherwise department does agree that these challenges happens in the particular set of industry. But again, cut to their challenges, they have really squeezed the time. So
Okay.
somewhere we will have to manage between the GST laws, the intention of the GST officer, and all those time limits that has been freezed. So I'm suggesting, and possibly practical or not practical, the management can always check upon that. You always put that there is a GST component that is involved in the transaction. So if we get a reward by this time, the things will be taken care of. Otherwise, we will not be able to reverse the GST amount. So if you see certain big companies, I'm just closing it. If you see certain big companies, even if they give you a credit note, they do not give you the GST amount of the credit note. Reason is the time limit has already elapsed.
Ma'am, there is two concepts are there. One is a commercial debit note or credit note, where we don't want to, don't need to reverse the GST. Okay. If there is an inline with your parent invoice or old invoice, then you must reverse the GST credit, which is already have taken opinion with Big Four and all. And such a thing will be the Bajaj when price difference debit has been processed. That time they will not reverse any GST amount. But
that's what I'm saying. So management can take up appropriate call on this. You can put a time limit to the customer also, that we will be reversing the commercial amount, but GST amount is already paid off to the department. So how will I reverse that amount? Because I'm sure the companies who are getting into this OEM transactions are also equally aware of the GST laws. So,
yes, ma'am, but no in hands of our as a vendor, because if we are facing such an issue and troubling anything, they will not listen. Either they said, we will be not do any business in further.
So what is the percentage of GST applicable to your transaction?
28%.
28%. So you can't even build in the price also.
Yeah, which is not possible, ma'am. And
yeah, I agree.
Single OEM transaction is aroundly yearly is aroundly 200 to 220 CR. Itself is Bajaj.
I know, but then gradually we will have to create this resistance. Small steps, putting things in place, and sensitizing them.
Steps, but it will be not resolved. And okay, ma'am, I got your answer. And last, my question is, when Mahindra and all customer is opting like that, when they are purchased from us, but they are not shown as a purchase return. Okay, it's anything for the quality or any reason. They shows as a sale to Deloitte. So how can we treat that?
So basically, what has happened is you have sold the goods to the Mahindra.
Yeah, Mahindra, Varroc and all also the opting the same process.
So can you elaborate the transaction? You have sold the goods to Mahindra and Mahindra.
Okay, and when they have found any issue in material, suppose quality issue and anything, then they will not shown as a purchase rejection. They shows as a sale to Deloitte back.
Acha, they raise a fresh invoice.
Yeah.
See, that was basically coming from the Transition Act, right? There was, chapter for transition of, previous laws to the current GST laws. In that, it was allowed that if you have a B2B transaction and there is a return in that particular transaction, then you can have a fresh invoice. But it is not advisable, but most of the companies are resorting to it. They are raising a tax invoice on it. This is not, a valid or, a genuine way of showing the purchase return, because it is not only adding to the turnover of the company, but also showing purchase return as a sales, right? Which is
Yes,
not
ma'am.
they are not, it is simple that you have some 10 lakh rupees goods and you want to return it. So if you want to return it, you don't own that goods. So how can you sell it? So
Yes,
there is
ma'am.
a
So now my question is, okay, right now we are accepting like that and we are booking as on a purchase, okay, but it's not good like that. We are showing and make a adjustment for the balance sheet, and it's a part of reconciliation, but it's not right. But we have to follow, right? As-
But then most of the big companies are resorting to this.
Hmm,
Possibly when there is an assessment, or after some time,
hmm.
this will get solved. Right now, many of the big companies are doing this for purchase return. They are actually booking sales, and you have no other option because you don't have a say in the company. So you have to book it as a
Yes,
purchase. But as of now, to be very true, no resolution on this. The best practice is, it is a sale return, treat it as a sale return. But then, since no option, and they are showing it as a tax invoice, you have no other option but to take it at, because that becomes a sale for them. A tax invoice coming from a customer is a big challenge.
okay, ma'am.
How can they sell a product which they don't own, but then they are raising a tax invoice for purchase return also? Eventually, when there is assessment and all, this will get sorted. As of now, we will have to live with it.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for such a fruitful discussion. Uh, rest of the questions can be taken offline with Archana ji.
Yes, sir.
We'll share the PPT with all the people, which will carry the email ID of Archana ji. May I request Rajesh Khemani ji to propose a vote of thanks to the
So
learned
just
speaker?
one small more request. The PPT will be really helpful, but I believe that I'm unfortunate enough to miss the initial 30 minutes. Is it possible to have the recording, because I find it really interesting and worthy? So I was actually
Yes,
stuck
we'll
up in a
try.
meeting, so I couldn't attend. I'm really sorry for that.
No
It's
issue,
my mistake.
absolutely. We'll make it a point. We'll
Yeah,
discuss and definitely we'll come back to that.
sure.
Right? If
Thank you
PPT
very
is, if recording is to be shared, then definitely we will share.
sure.
Right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Rajesh
Samir
ji.
bhai, yeah,
हाँ,
before that, Jigar ji, and a small request, you can fill
Yes,
the feedback form,
sure,
give your
certainly.
contact details, you can put up your requests, questions, queries, and whatever is required. So let the admin team of MSM Perspective and the speaker to revert to all the audience, considering all the requests and suggestions. So
Certainly,
it
Rajesh.
became
Thank you.
administratively easy,
Yeah,
and you can always touch base Samir bhai and Archana ji for 1:1 interaction whenever you
surely,
want.
surely,
You guys
surely.
are there. She's
Try.
very open up in that way to
Yeah,
speak and talk, and from the discussion I can make it out that it's not a typical issue of one company. It's an issue for many,
correct.
and to my knowledge, and Archana ji, I just want to draw your attention. In case of engineering goods, in particular automobile, the ancillary unit supplier, tier 1 supplier, tier 2, tier 3, everything is driven by the parent, major automobile company, and they can dictate the terms whatever they want. In fact, on the basis of a purchase order requirement for next 1 year, these smaller automobile supplier, tier 1, tier 2, are investing. So the automobile company and tier 1, tier 2 supplier capital plan, financial projection goes hand in hand. And now this will apply to electronic motor vehicle industries, and it apply to I think airline and shipping industries as well, and heavy engineering. So it's a very unique and different concept, which require a different attention and different treatment, because everybody want to work as per their own convenience. Having said that, since we are passed by 15-20 minutes to the scheduled, and still a lot of people are there, now in the larger interest, I will call it of a day, and on behalf of MSME Perspective and on behalf of all the audience, let me thanks to today's learned speaker, Ms. Archana ji Yadav, thank you for your valuable time, and today's session was really enriching. At the same time, I request to all the participants to join MSB Perspective or a Telegram channel and the LinkedIn, so they can be properly and regularly updated on forthcoming program and any news update and other aspects. And also, I would like to thank to the event partner today, what's Spurs Advisory Private Limited. It's a professionally managed debt syndication advisory firm focused on SME sector, and Blossom Advisors and Consultant Private Limited. It's a debt syndication firm focused on structured trade finance and trade finance. So thanks to both of the event partner as well. And last but not the least, so thanks to all the audience for their valuable time and making this session successful and very enriching to the all.
Rajesh, I have one suggestion. Can I?
Sure,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
What I suggest that let's have a only question answer session. You gather all the question answers from the delegates and call Archana to answer them. You send the question answer to her also, so that in public lot of things can be discussed and questions can be answered. What do you think, Archana? Would that be okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Many times, the topic is different and the issues are different.
Yes.
And it's better to, talk on the topic and the relevant, challenges that is faced. Otherwise, what is happening is you give all the gyan, but it is not fitting into the real scenario of the GST.
Exactly. So 25
right.
questions. 25 questions for only 1.5 hour. We can have a next session. Rajesh, you can call for all the questions. Spread it out. Let Madam answer them all. That would be really great because no one does that. And I think we can do that very well.
Yes, ma'am. We'll do that. Yes.
And all the
Rajesh
best
ji, I
to you,
think, yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Rajesh ji, I think that's a valid suggestion. We should take care of it. So thank you so much, everyone. I think Rajesh ji का link नहीं चल रहा है. So thank you, Samir ji.
Thank you, madam.
Thanks everybody. It was really a nice
Thanks.
session, and
Thank you.
I look forward towards receiving the PPT so that I can actually draft few good questions to value add in the next session for sure from my
Yes.
side.
So
Always
Thank you very
welcome,
much
Jigar ji.
for audiences.
Yeah. Thank you, Samir ji. Thank you, Kajal ma'am.
Well,
Thanks,
Yeah.
dear. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks to everyone.